So you want to own a casino. Not gamble in one. Own it. Your name on the license, your carpet on the floor, your cut of every chip that slides across every table 24 hours a day, forever. And you already know the phrase that makes this the safest business idea on earth. The house always wins. Every game is built with the odds tilted your way. You don't need luck. You are the luck. Restaurants fight for 3% margins. Airlines pray for full seats. You'd own the only business in the world where the math itself is your employee. It sounds less like a business and more like a license to print money. Sounds simple. It is not simple. Here's the thing nobody tells you before you buy the felt. The house's famous edge on most of those games is pennies on the dollar. On blackjack, it can be half of 1%. The casino floor, the thing the whole building is named after, brings in barely a quarter of the money on the Las Vegas Strip. The hotel rooms upstairs earn more than the tables. The most feared man in casino history wasn't a cheat or a card counter. He was a billionaire who played by the rules, won fairly, and could sink a public company's quarterly earnings on his way out the door. A $2,400 million casino, one of the most expensive ever built, once sold for $82 million. 3 cents on the dollar, and it took 2 bankruptcies in 2.5 years to get there. And here's the strangest part, the part almost nobody outside the industry knows. The biggest casino companies in the world do not own their casinos. Caesar's Palace, MGM Grand, the Bellagio, the companies running them are tenants. The building belongs to someone else. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the smartest people in gambling stopped betting on the tables entirely and what they bet on instead. Because the house does always win. You've just been wrong this whole time about which house. Let's start with the price of admission. In 1998, Steve went open the Bellagio on the Las Vegas Strip. Design and construction, $1.6 billion. At the time, the most expensive building in the world. Not the most expensive casino. The most expensive building. Of any kind. Anywhere. 7 years later, Wynn did again. Wynn Las Vegas, $2.7 billion. A new record. And in 2021, Resorts World Las Vegas opened its doors at $4.3 billion. In 23 years, the price of a seat at this table nearly tripled. Don't want to build? Fine, buy. That same year, the Venetian, with its Palazzo Tower and its convention center, sold for $6.25 billion. But look closely at how that deal was written, because it's the strangest sale you'll ever read. For $1 billion of that money bought the land and the buildings. A completely different buyer paid $2.25 billion for something else, the right to operate the casino inside them. 2 buyers, 1 casino. Keep that split in your head. It's the thread running through everything in this video. Now, here's the cost nobody sees coming, and it isn't a building at all. It's a signature. A casino license is not something you buy. It's something a government grants you. In New York, when the state opened bidding for 3 casino licenses downstate, the license fee alone was $500 million. Not the land, not the construction, the permission slip. That is not a typo. $500 million for a piece of paper before you've poured a single slab of concrete. Total minimum commitment per bid, over $1 billion. And you can't just pay it. You have to pass. Regulators run what's called a suitability investigation. They dig through your finances, your partners, your history, your associates, and you pay for the privilege of being investigated. If they don't like what they find, there is no appeal to the market. You're simply out. Then, before your doors even open, the state names its share. In Nevada, the gaming tax tops out around 8% of your winnings. In Pennsylvania, 54%. On every dollar the slot machines hold, more than half goes to the state, off the top forever. That's worth sitting with. Your silent partner chose its own cut, wrote it into law, and takes it whether you profit or not. So the entry ticket is somewhere between 1.6 and 4.3 billion to build, 6 billion plus to buy, plus $500 million for permission, plus a background check you can fail, plus a partner who takes up to half the winnings and never shows up to work. That's the scale of this game. And you haven't dealt a single card yet. But here's where it gets interesting. Because everything you just paid for, the marble, the fountains, the license, starts costing you money the moment you own it. Not when the casino is busy. Not when it's open. The moment you own it. In 2020, the world ran a brutal experiment no casino owner would ever volunteer for. What does a casino cost when it's completely closed? Wynn Resorts told its investors in an official filing, roughly $3.5 million a day. Payroll, benefits, upkeep, with the doors locked and every table dark. Interest on debt added almost another million a day on top. MGM, with its whole portfolio shut, was reportedly burning over $14 million a day. With zero customers. Do the math on that. $14 million a day is what standing still can cost. Now open the doors, and the burn gets bigger, because a casino never, ever stops. There's no closing time. 3 full shifts of dealers, pit bosses, cashiers, security, hosts, cooks, and housekeepers, 365 days a year, thousands of employees for a single mega resort. Every hour billed, whether the floor is packed or empty. Above their heads, the eye in the sky. The Bellagio alone runs around 2,000 surveillance cameras over 144 tables. Coverage the regulator literally requires you to operate. The eye never blinks, and it never stops costing money. The floor itself is a warehouse of hardware. A single new slot machine runs roughly $20,000. A floor of 2,000 machines? That's on the order of $40 million in furniture. And then there's the strangest daily cost in any industry. The free stuff? The rooms you comp. The dinners you comp. The show tickets, the limos. And here's the cold part. None of that is generosity. Casinos budget it per player with a formula. They compute your theoretical loss, your average bet, times hours played, times the house edge, and hand you back roughly 30% of it in freebies to make sure you come back and lose the rest. The free buffet has a line in the accounts. Kindness, at industrial scale, is a marketing expense. So, millions a day in wages, a small city of cameras, 40 million in machines, and a generosity budget with a formula behind it. All of it riding on one assumption, that the famous edge, the house always wins, earns enough to feed the machine. So let's look at that edge, because this is where the story breaks open. Ask anyone where a casino makes its money and they'll point at the tables. The odds are rigged your way. The house always wins. That's the business, right? That is the bait, and it's thinner than you think. Here's the actual edge, game by game. Blackjack, against a player using basic strategy, about half of 1%. Baccarat, 1.06% on the banker bet. Even American roulette, the greedy one, with 2 green zeros, gives the house just 5.26%. Slots are the generous ones for the house, holding maybe 5 to 10 cents of every dollar. That's the whole miracle. The house doesn't win big. The house wins slightly, millions and millions of times in a row. One bet means nothing. One night means nothing. A lucky guest walks out with your money all the time. The edge only becomes real at massive volume, which is why everything about a casino is engineered to keep the volume flowing. No clocks, no windows, free drinks, and a carpet you could stare at forever. But now, the number that rewrites the whole picture. On the Las Vegas Strip, the most famous gambling street on earth, how much of the money do you think comes from gambling? 26%. That's it. In the most recent fiscal year, gaming was 26.1% of total Strip revenue. And this was the 27th consecutive year that gambling made up less than half of the money. 27 years. This is not a blip. This is the business model. And the biggest single earner on the Strip? The hotel rooms, 33.5%. The beds upstairs make more money than every card, die wheel, and slot machine downstairs combined. Add $4 billion of food and another $1.5 billion of drinks on top. Notice what that means. The casino, the thing on the sign, the thing the whole building is named after, is a quarter of the business. So, if the felt isn't a fortune, where is it? Here's where it gets interesting. Follow a guest for one weekend. She plays an hour of blackjack. The house's mathematical win on that hour might be $40. But she sleeps 2 nights in your hotel, eats 4 meals, sees a show, hits the spa, buys a hoodie. The casino floor was never the business. It was the magnet. The resort around it is the machine. And while she plays, something else is happening. Every swipe of her player's card, every bet, every session, every steak dinner lands in a database. The casino computes what she's mathematically worth per day of her life, files it, and prices its generosity against it. How valuable can a pile of gambling data really be? In 2015, when Caesars' operating company collapsed into an $18 billion bankruptcy, lawyers and creditors fought over every asset the empire had: the towers, the brands, half the Las Vegas Strip. The single most valuable asset in the fight, valued at around $1 billion, wasn't a casino. It was the loyalty database, 17 years of records on tens of millions of gamblers. The list of players was worth more than any building they played in. Think about that for a second. In the bankruptcy of the biggest casino company in America, the crown jewel was a spreadsheet. But the resort machine and the database both feed on volume. Thousands of small, predictable losers. There's a second kind of customer, and he is neither small nor predictable: the whale. In May 1995, Australian billionaire Kerry Packer sat down at the MGM Grand and, in a reported 40 minutes, took the casino for around $20 million, playing up to $250,000 a hand, several hands at once, entirely fairly. Casinos court players like Packer with jets and villas, because his theoretical loss is astronomical. But theory needs volume, and a whale is the opposite of volume, a handful of colossal bets where anything can happen. When Packer won big, the results reportedly showed up where you'd never expect: in public companies' quarterly earnings. After one of his runs, a major operator had to publicly deny that a single Australian guest had dented its numbers. One guest, moving the reported earnings of a listed corporation. That is how thin the famous edge really is at the top. And in Macau, the world's biggest gaming market, entire fortunes were built on exactly this class of player, ferried in by middlemen called junkets. Remember that word. So here's the real shape of it. The tables are the magnet. The rooms, food, and shows are the machine. The database is the treasure. And the high roller pit is a beautiful, gold-plated coin flip. Now, who actually owns all this? That's where this story stops being about gambling at all. In 2008, 2 private equity firms, Apollo and TPG, bought Caesars in a leveraged buyout worth around $30 billion. Leveraged, as always, means one thing: they didn't use their own money. The debt was loaded onto the company itself. The deal closed straight into the financial crisis. By January 2015, Caesars' operating company was in Chapter 11 with $18 billion of debt, while the owners and the creditors spent years in court fighting over which assets had been quietly moved where. And here's the twist: the casino didn't fail at gambling. The tables never stopped earning. The company was killed by its own purchase price, the debt from the day it was bought. And out of that wreckage came the strangest idea in modern gambling, the one that explains the Venetian's 2-buyer sale from the start of this video. What if the buildings and the business divorced? It's called the REIT split, a real estate investment trust. The casino company sells its buildings to a landlord company, then rents them back and keeps operating. The operator keeps the brand, the staff, the database. The landlord gets one thing: rent. Enormous, contractual, guaranteed rent. This is not a fringe idea. Today, a landlord called Vici Properties owns Caesars Palace. It owns the MGM Grand, Mandalay Bay, the Venetian, the Mirage. Blackstone, a private equity firm, paid over $8 billion for the Bellagio, Aria, and Vidara, and leases them back for hundreds of millions a year. Say it out loud. Caesar's Palace does not belong to Caesars. The Bellagio belongs to an investment fund in New York. The most famous casinos on Earth are operated by tenants. Want proof of how completely the two halves have separated? In 2022, headlines said the Mirage was sold to Hard Rock for $1.075 billion. What did that billion actually buy? Not the building. The landlord kept it. It bought the operations. The name on the door changed, and the rent checks just started coming from someone new. But actually, here's the flip. Why would the operators agree to give up their buildings? Because the market told them a brutal truth. The steady half of a casino isn't the gambling. It's the walls. Rent arrives whether the whales win or lose. Wall Street pays a premium for boring. So the buildings went to landlords who never touch a chip, which leaves the operator holding the two things a landlord can't own: the customers and the license. And the license is the strangest asset in business. It's the moat that keeps competitors out. Remember, $500 million just to apply in New York. But it isn't property. It's permission. A government gave it to you, and a government can take it back. Which brings us to the part of this business that can go from record profits to existential crisis with a single press conference. Every business has a worst-case scenario. Most industries call it bankruptcy. Casinos have 3 worse ones, and none of them care how well you run your floor. Number 1, the signature gets revoked. In Australia, 2 Royal Commission-style inquiries looked inside the country's biggest casino groups and found systemic failures on money laundering and junket partners. Crown Resorts was declared unsuitable to hold its license in every state it operated: Melbourne, Perth, Sydney. The Star, in Sydney, had its license outright suspended in October 2022, its casino handed to an external manager appointed by the regulator, its owners reduced to spectators inside their own building. Weigh that for a moment. Billions of dollars of marble, thousands of staff, a functioning, profitable floor, and the entire thing hangs on a regulator's opinion of you. Unsuitable. One word, and you're a tenant of your own license. Number 2, the policy earthquake, when the black swan isn't even in your country. In 2013, Macau's casinos won about $45 billion, 6 times Las Vegas. The engine was VIP baccarat, junket middlemen flying in mainland Chinese high rollers by the planeload. Then Beijing launched an anti-corruption campaign. Officials and businessmen stopped wanting to be seen with stacks of chips. The junket pipeline froze. Macau's gaming revenue fell 34% in a single year, 2015. December 2014 alone dropped 30%. A third of the biggest gambling market on Earth erased, not by competition, not by bad management, but by a political decision made 1,000 miles from the casino floor. And number 3, the market simply changes its mind. For this one, meet Revel. Atlantic City, 2012. Revel opens. A curved glass tower on the boardwalk, 57 stories, $2.4 billion. One of the most expensive casino resorts ever built, designed to out-Vegas Vegas on the Jersey Shore. It never worked. Not one profitable year. Chapter 11 within 10 months. Chapter 11 again the year after. On September 2nd, 2014, 29 months after opening, Revel closed its doors. It wasn't alone. That same year, 4 Atlantic City's 12 casinos shut down. The market had been surrounded by new casinos in neighboring states, and the customers simply stopped driving in. In 2015, Revel, all $2.4 billion of it, sold at bankruptcy auction for $82 million. 3 cents on the dollar. The buyer got a skyscraper for the price of car park. Read that again. The house edge never stopped working inside that building. Every table was still mathematically rigged in the house's favor every single day, and the house still lost $2.3 billion. Because the edge is a tailwind, not a shield. It cannot outrun a license, a policy, or an empty parking lot. So, knowing all this, does owning a casino actually work? Who wins this game? In the most recent fiscal year, the Las Vegas Strip posted $21 billion in revenue, close to an all-time record. Champagne, right? Net income fell 81%. Record money coming in, profits collapsing, rising wages, rising rents, rising everything, eating the famous edge alive. The scoreboard says the Strip is winning. The bank account isn't sure. So who actually wins? Watch where the money settles, and three players never lose. The landlord, Vici, Blackstone. The rent arrives every month, in good quarters and bad. Whale wins and whale losses. They own the only bet in the building with no variance at all. The state. Its cut is written into law, up to 54% in Pennsylvania, taken off the top before profit, before rent, before anything. The government never buys a chip, and it holds the largest house edge in the room. And the database. Buildings age, brands fade, licenses hang by a thread. But the list of who gambles, how much, and what brings them back was the single most valuable asset in the biggest casino bankruptcy in history. It appreciates while everything else depreciates. Notice who's missing from that list: the person at the tables and the person who owns them. The operator on the felt carries the payroll, the cameras, the comps, the whales, the regulator, and the rent. Everyone else gets paid first. None of the three winners is optimizing for beat the gambler, because beating the gambler was never really the business. So think back to where we started, the safest business idea on earth, the license to print money. The math was never wrong. The house edge is real. It's just the smallest edge in the building. The next time you walk a casino floor, really look at it. The chips sliding across the felt. The lights, the bells, the fountain out front. That's not actually what you're looking at. You're looking at a hotel that out-earns its own casino. You're looking at a building whose rent flows to a landlord in New York. You're looking at a tax line a state wrote for itself, and a database quietly calculating what your evening is worth. The felt is just what's showing on the screen, while the real business happens somewhere else. In a lease, in a statute. In 17 years of swipe data, nobody on the floor will ever see. Because the house does always win. You're just wrong about which house.